Welcome! This is the Observation and Assessment Overview. This content talk covers a variety of aspects of assessment with an emphasis on the continuing process of observing children and documenting progress that enables teachers to carry out and inform teaching. What do we mean by observation? Observation means intentionally watching and listening to learn about children, where we become fully involved within the environment to listen, to look, to feel, to understand what are children doing and what are they wanting to learn about. Assessment is a generic term that refers to the process of gathering information for the purpose of making a decision. A cycle. This slide illustrates the assessment instructional cycle. Let's begin with the typical routines and environments where we will begin to observe what is happening. Common ways to document these observations include making anecdotal notes, completing checklists, taking language samples with running records, collecting work samples and photos of children's work, recording and viewing video clips. We also may take children's work, scan it on a computer or a copy machine to make a copy so that we can return the original to the children. Documentation allows us to summarize and use what has been learned through observation. After documentation, the teaching team interprets the information by looking at the data and using it to plan and hypothesize what might work in this instructional setting based on the data, based on what children are interested in, and based on what we want to support their skills and development to further grow. Instruction is then implemented based on our observations and the decisions that we make to improve the teaching and learning. The cycle continues as the teaching team observes again to see the impact of the changed or improved instruction and how it has impacted the individuals and groups of children. Observation and assessment serve a variety of purposes. Collecting assessment information helps teachers monitor children's progress toward their goals. Assessment information for teaching informs teaching for all children, including those with special needs and those who are dual language learners. Gathering assessment information is best done as a collaborative process with family members and specialists. Assessment information is vital for sharing with parents and specialists, and gathering information from parents and specialists will help you learn more about the children you teach. Observation and assessment helps teachers and families support children's development and learning in other environments outside of the classroom. In addition, observation and assessment are important for the purpose of overall program evaluation, which will lead to program improvements. Now, let's look at planning for assessment and the importance of ensuring a systematic approach. Just as you plan classroom lessons, it is important to make a plan for gathering information about children's development and learning. Teachers need to plan how to gather information about each child's progress in relation to an assessment framework. On this slide, you will see the Head Start Early Learning Outcomes framework that serves as a reminder of an assessment framework that helps us recognize the central domains of learning across the different ages and stages of development. Progress information is collected during everyday activities. Teaching teams organize their collection of data in different ways. In one classroom, assessment information might be gathered about all of the children with a focus on one domain per week. In another classroom, the teaching team instead decides to gather information about a small group of children each week, but during the week they collect information about these children across domains. Many teachers find it is most practical to collect assessment information during activities that do not require their full attention. For example, conducting a large group activity. Gathering data when several adults are available is another helpful approach. No matter when you document, it is important to make sure that you also record the setting. So what is happening, where was the child in relation to the classroom space, the time, and the date. One teaching team might decide to collect a large amount of ongoing assessment information during a single activity, while another might find that it works better to gather a small amount of information during several different everyday activities. Remember that some children in the classroom may have highly individualized goals and objectives that require daily or weekly collection of assessment data. Now let's look at gathering and synthesizing information. This is the next important step in the cycle of gathering, documenting, planning, and working to use the assessment to inform your teaching. There are a number of ways to gather information as a part of child observation and assessment. Teachers write anecdotal records to document key information about what they see or hear children doing. Other common strategies for documenting observed behavior are collecting samples such as work samples, language samples, photos of children's work, recording videos of pertinent classroom activities, and using checklists, which can be teacher-made or can be a part of curriculum materials to note children's progress in specific skill areas. Teachers also gather information about children's development and learning from families. Using a variety of strategies to gather child assessment information will probably be the most helpful way to gather the information that you need. It also makes sure that you are creating reliable and valid data. Strategies such as anecdotal records, checklists, work samples, and video help teachers to gather evidence of children's progress. To be put to use, this data must be organized. Teachers use the areas of the Head Start Child Development and Learning Framework or their program's chosen assessment instrument to organize the information they've gathered about children's progress. They may use a portfolio, a notebook, a computerized assessment system, or some other method to organize the assessment information about each child. You might think about what your current method is or the method that you have observed other teachers use. Teachers then share the progress information with families, supervisors, and other members of their teaching team. It's also important to remember that even the youngest children will learn and have lots of value in sharing with you and you sharing with them the documentation of their learning experiences. Once the teaching team has gathered and organized information about child's development, knowledge, and skills, they examine the data to understand whether the child is learning what they need to know. Teachers first look to make sure no data is missing. Have we collected all of the domains of learning and development? Have observations been recorded for all children? These are important considerations. By examining the information that has been collected, the teaching team can determine whether or not children are making progress toward learning goals. Teachers use ongoing assessment information to note progress or record mastery of particular skills on their program assessment. In this way, your program's chosen assessment instrument summarizes the information you've collected about children's development and early learning. It also helps you see the progress they have made and be able to articulate that progress to their families. It is important to work towards mastery of these skills that children will need to be successful, capable learners. Many early childhood programs require teachers to rate a multiple domain assessment instrument for each child 2 or 3 times a year. These ratings will be based on the observation and documentation that the teacher has collected over the time in the classroom environment. This slide lists the name of some commonly used observational assessment instruments. Now let's talk about using data to inform teaching. Based on their review of child observation and assessment information, teachers determine whether their teaching needs to be adjusted to help children learn more. By adjusting what is being taught or the manner of instruction, teaching teams use research-based practices of intentional teaching to support children's learning. There might be a decision to adjust curricula targets or what we're learning about, or implement a particular intervention strategy in a different way, or use additional resources to support development and learning. Sometimes teachers find that children are progressing well. Children may have accomplished current learning goals and may be ready to focus on new goals. If ongoing child assessment shows that a child or a subgroup of children in a classroom is not progressing as expected, teachers work to improve learning by changing what or how they are teaching. They might determine that it would be helpful to work on an easier goal or look at the prerequisite skills that needed to be present in the children's strengths in order to provide more opportunities for practice and learning on this current goal. They work towards the goal during activities that the children enjoy, or they provide more time to respond or more assistance that children may need. Now let's think about using data to improve programs. Support for teaching teams as they carry out child observation and assessment comes in many forms. Your administrators and educational coordinators can make sure that training, technical assistance, and other resources are available so that you can successfully plan, implement, and improve your ongoing child assessment. Individualized assistance in the form of reflective supervision, coaching, or mentoring has also been used successfully to help teaching teams begin a systematic approach to documenting teaching and learning. Resources such as materials, equipment, and time are vital to planning and implementing ongoing child assessment. Teachers also find great value in arrangements such as peer support groups that allow them to support one another and share ideas. Now let's think about the considerations in child observation and assessment. This course emphasizes the importance of teachers working collaboratively with children's families as well as colleagues. Assessment is made richer by more information about the child. Families offer a unique perspective about the child, as do teachers. Teachers have the responsibility to ensure families' perspectives are solicited and honored. This begins with an attitude that the family's perspective is important to the assessment process and that families are capable of providing information. In a true partnership, both teachers and families learn from one another. This course covers aspects of child observation and assessment that may need to be adjusted for learners with special circumstances. When children are dual language learners, some aspects of observation and assessment need to be modified. This course includes a module about children who are dual language learners, emphasizing the importance of the process by which they learn receptive and expressive English language skills and engage in early English literacy activities. Adjustments are also required for children with disabilities. Observation and assessment may need to be more frequent and precise to match specific children's learning characteristics. All team members work together to use observation and assessment to help children with disabilities progress in the classroom. Let's summarize our overview of child observation and assessment. An assessment plan is used to make sure that all information is collected about all children in relation to all areas of development within the chosen assessment instrument of your program. Information about children's progress is gathered from families and by using a variety of documentation strategies during routines every day in the classroom. Teachers analyze all the information that they have gathered to determine what children know and can do, and use a strengths-based approach to document this progress. Child observation and assessment information is used to decide whether children are learning what they need to know. Once teachers determine whether or not children are making enough progress, they decide whether adjustments in teaching could help children learn better. Teaching teams purposely plan teaching for groups as well as individual children. Finally, remember that the cycle of assessment and teaching is ongoing. You continue to check on children's progress and make improvements in teaching to help children be capable, successful thinkers and ready to learn. Materials for this content talk were provided in conjunction with the Early EDU Alliance membership between the University of Washington and the University of Central Missouri.